This is so much more fun than reading CVs. So recruiting can be difficult. It can be fun if you really like it. And as Sherry said, you want to try to pick the best people, the people that fit to your culture, and the people that are going to help you add value to your business. Okay, so just some tips for successful recruiting, and especially if you're a small business, you may not have an HR recruiter, you may not have someone that specializes in recruiting. The first thing to do is really define your position. Try to figure out what is it that I want for this new position, if you're a startup or if you're just creating a new position. So what is the job exactly? And you want to define that. What skills does this require? So you want to really think about what is it that you really, really need? Do you need someone who can communicate well? Do you need someone who knows about relationship building? Do you need someone who maybe has more of an IT background? You know, they need to really know how to use Excel and do some data mining and build spreadsheets for you. So you want to think about those things and not just a laundry list of everything that you need to get done. And again, I'm talking about smaller business because that's kind of who I thought I would be talking to. So you want to really have a good, clear picture, and that will help you write your job description. And the reason why I know that this can be an issue is because we work with a lot of small businesses who are trying to start internship programs or who are looking to post positions, and they just really don't even have a clue. They don't have a job description. So you want to have a really clear picture. So in the cartoon, we're looking for someone with wisdom of a 50-year-old, the experience of a 40-year-old, and the drive of a 30-year-old, and the pay scale of a 20-year-old. Okay, so they have their list. So you want to really think about that. The other thing I think with small business, you need to think about, is there another way that I can fill this position and maybe not really hire a full-time right now if I don't need that or if I don't think that I'm ready to do that. So you might want to look at temporary agencies. They can help you fill those needs immediately. They will help you find that person, place that person there. They will help you evaluate what's going on. So you might want to look to a temporary agent just as another way to fill a position. Another way is through internships at Marshall, and we can talk to you about that in depth if you're interested in that. Sometimes an intern can come in and do a project for you. Sherry talked a little bit about handbooks. So maybe you don't have a handbook or you need for it to be reviewed or updated. That might be a great project for a student to do. And it's a limited project. They come in, they do that for you, they give you the recommendations, they walk away and you're done. So it's just a great way, again, to fill the need that you might have immediately. The other thing is independent contractors, and Sherry talked a little bit about that too with consulting. You may just need to outsource that job for a while to see if you really need it, to see how it goes. Outsourcing, all of these things can also help you write a job description. Those people, you might interview them and talk to them about what they're doing, what jobs they're giving them, and make a list and keep those tasks down of what they really need to do, so then you can then define a better job description for yourself. I wanted to talk a little bit about internships, and as Sherry, again, I will refer to Sherry, things change. On July 2nd of this year, the appeals court vacated a lower court decision that Fox Searchlight Pictures classified former workers as unpaid interns rather than employees. And that was a big scare in our industry when it came up. These were two older gentlemen who were going back to school. They were in California. They were working for Fox Searchlight Pictures as an intern. They sued the company because they said all they were doing was they were runners. They were getting people coffee. They were setting up things for, I think, some of the actors and things like that. They really weren't getting true internship experience. So the judges ruled the base for the test should be internship educational benefits. They sent it back to the lower courts, ordering that the federal district court apply a primary beneficiary test. And that test is, does it benefit the employer more than it benefits the student? So that's what you have to think about with internships. So the major criteria for internships, in my mind, and we can help you get through this if you're interested in internships, is the experience must be an extension of the classroom. Okay? It can't be simply to advance your business, but it's got to be to help that student. and to help them learn. You'll see that there's also a website there that will talk about internships and give you more information on internships if you need that. I think the most important thing that I see smaller business do, and I was involved with a smaller business and we fought this all the time, is that somebody leaves, you're in a panic, and you think, what am I going to do? I got to fill this position, because you usually don't have a pool of applicants ready there to go. So it can be a while to try to find the fill-in for that person, or to find a good fit. So the number one rule that I can tell you as a small business is never stop recruiting. You need to constantly recruit. You need to constantly have access to people that you think might fit for your company. So don't quit. And the good thing about sometimes being a small business is you can maneuver yourself a little bit quicker than larger business. I know at Marshall, it is horrendous to get somebody hired. And we've got search committees, and you got to go through the freeze committee, and you have to have all this stuff approved and all these signatures. And by the time you've posted the job, and by the time you get really to interview somebody, it may be 3 months down the road, and people are saying, forget this. I'm already moving on. I need to find a job. I can't wait. So as smaller businesses, you are really positioned to move very quickly and try to get people hired quickly. And that's really good, and that's what you need to promote and brand with yourself. As you're a smaller company, even though you may not have the great benefits that a big company have, or the ability to move up, you are a startup, you're going to give people experience, they're going to get some great job experience with you. So you want to promote that. And also keep your eyes open for someone who might fit for you in the future. Again, go to career fairs, post your jobs, collect resumes, collect all of these things. And if you find somebody you really like, make a note, somebody you can always call back in the future. You never know. Even though if they're working somewhere else, they may come to work for you if you have a good offer for them. Reviewing resumes and other documents. And this can be an art, and you need to really think about it, because, and I do this with our students all the time when I train them, what is the purpose of a resume? What do you guys think the purpose of a resume is? Anybody? Highlight your skills. Introduce yourself. Summary of qualifications. Usually students will tell me, it's going to get me a job. And I'm like, no, it's going to get you the interview. Okay? So that's the first step. The first step is you want to look through that stuff to make sure this is the person you want to interview. Okay? And I talk about the T approach, and we have many T's. I always tell students to sit in the T when they're freshmen. Okay? You want to sit in the middle and you want to sit in the front. But if you take a T down, and I kind of did this, and you have your job and you have the requirements listed here, then you want to go through the resume and check off to make sure that that resume fits your job description. Okay? Then you make sure you've got all the qualifications. You didn't let somebody through that maybe didn't have the qualifications, and you're wasting interview time. Many big companies use software to look for key words and phrases. There's all kinds of things that you can do with a resume, but I think for a smaller company, just using this would be good. You always want to look for gaps in employment. I have to go back to the Marshall stories. Because we have search committees, and I'm usually not on the search committee, even though I am the hiring manager, everybody else gets to make the decision, and I get to make the final decision. I always want to look at all the resumes. The resumes that I were getting, there were so many gaps in employment. I was like, why did they let this through? And I think it's because they don't really look at the dates. They didn't really pay attention to the dates, didn't pay attention to how long they were there. So you want to make sure you look for gaps in employment, because that can really be red flag for you. Why did you leave your last job? The company relocated and didn't tell me. So you want to make sure that you do that. Short stays, you want to make sure that that document is error-free, because I tell students all the time, I've picked up resumes, and in the first couple lines, the capitalization isn't right. If I were an HR manager, I would put that in the no pile immediately if I saw errors on the resume. There should not be any errors on the resume, because usually what happens is that person's not paying attention to detail. There's all kinds of little cues that they're giving you if you see a resume with errors on it. And I would also ask for a cover letter. Always ask for a cover letter. When you read that cover letter, it's going to give you some ideas about that person. Can they write? Do they have good grammar? What are they telling me? Do they have a story to tell? How does that all come together with the resume? I would always ask for a cover letter, because that's going to give you more information than just the resume. Sometimes kids will tell their life story on a resume. I did this and I did that and I did all that kind of stuff. You know, I hate to see those kinds of resumes even when I was working and hiring people. You know, it's just people, that tells me a lot about a person. You know, they're probably a person that's going to talk you to death. They're probably going to tell you, you just want to know, you want the watch, you don't want to know how to make the watch. These things are there for a reason, and they will tell you a lot of cues, so use them. So that's kind of the resume and other documents. But always ask for a cover letter. I think it will tell you more than you can imagine. Let's talk a little bit about social media. A lot of smaller businesses probably don't have social media footprints. Maybe you do. If you don't get too excited. But I would stress, if you're going to do anything for recruitment things, to do it through LinkedIn, to use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great tool. Students are using it more. Again, you'll learn a little bit more about that student if they have a LinkedIn account. And like I said, it can be used for both the employer and the job seeker. So job seekers are using it, employers are using it. As an employer, you can seek, identify, validate, and connect with talent. So you can post your jobs out there. And basically, it's free. So you want to use all the free things you can for recruiting when you can. Remember that recruiting is a two-way street. Okay, it's almost like a first date too kind of thing, the interview process. That candidate needs to impress you, and they need to leave an impression with you. You need to also attract that employee if you want them. You need to show them that this is the place you want to work. So it kind of is a two-way street. Remember that referrals are going to be your best tool also for recruitment. If somebody refers a person to you that you really respect, then take a look at that person. Always get their resume. Look to your staff and people that are always also working for you, because they will give you referrals for good employees also. So make sure that you use that when you're recruiting. Get out of the office and network. I think that's the best thing you can do when recruiting. Career fairs, chamber events. You just never know who you're going to run into, who might be looking for a position. So always have your card, get their information, make sure that you make notes when you're doing that. And the other thing I think is so important, even though you may not hire this candidate, they may be your second choice. You want to make sure that they leave with a good taste in their mouth, and that they feel comfortable with you and they like your company, because that you may have to call them. You never know what might happen to that first candidate. You may have to call them back. So make sure that you continue to build a relationship with every person that you interview. You want them to feel really good about your company, because they're going to talk good about your company, and they can help you recruiting. Interview questions, legal or not, and Sherry touched a little bit on this. So we all have to be careful about what kind of questions we ask, right? So first one, and I know I got some great HR professionals out here. Do you have a criminal history, and have you been convicted? Can you ask that question legally? Now, second question, have you been arrested? No. Okay. And why not? Why can't you ask that?
Because our assumption is that you're innocent until proven guilty, so therefore you have no record.
Correct. And really, what does that have to do with the position at the time? Okay. All right. Good. Are you married?
No.
Okay. That was a resounding no, okay. How often are you deployed for your Army Reserve training? Can you ask that? They say, you see on their resume that they're part of the Army Reserve.
That's connected to whether they can do the job.
Okay, that's again my little red. It is about what you do with the information you gather, and is it job related? If it's job related, then it may be okay to ask. If it's not, then you can't, okay? And then what are you going to do with that information? You can't use the information to discriminate, right? Right? Okay. Okay. I noticed that you speak Spanish. Is this your native language? Can you ask that?
No.
No. Okay. Okay. The job description states you have to lift 75 pounds. Are you able to do that? Yes, you can ask that question. It is job related. Okay. Do you have any disabilities? No. What if someone discloses disabilities to you? What if they say, I'm disabled? Then it's kind of a free.
You can ask if they can perform an essential
Right,
job function.
right. So then if they disclose that to you, you can probe a little bit more. You can ask some more questions. Okay, we provide uniforms. Can you tell me how much you weigh? No. Okay, good. Heck no, I'm not telling you how much I weigh. Okay. Anyway, so again, as Sherry said, you may have supervisors that are interviewing. You may have search committees like Marshall does. You may have people who are really not familiar with a lot of this stuff. So make sure, again, you talk with people who are doing your interviews or recruiting and make sure that they understand what they can and cannot ask and how they can use that information. Okay, should you use an evaluation tool? And these are just the most common, and this came from SHRM, the most common ways to evaluate a job candidate. And behavioral interviewing is the top, okay? When I say behavioral interviewing, does everybody know what I'm talking about? Because if not, we're going to get you out of here on time. I've got a handout with behavioral questions on it. But behavioral questions are more situational questions. Like, have you ever fired anyone? If you're hiring a manager, have you ever fired anybody? Tell me the situation. What did you do? How did you handle it? What was the outcome? And what you want to hear from them is very specific ways that they did that. Have you ever written somebody up for disciplinary action? You know, you want to say, okay, tell me how it went. What did you do? Okay. So those are real important questions to really use when you're interviewing someone. And you want to make sure that they're giving you good detail. And the handout that I have is for students, so it tells them how they should answer that question, so that might help you know what kind of information you want back. But you want specifics. You don't want somebody who talks in generalities. Okay. There are online tests. I gave you a website, this Pyrometrics. It was really fun. I went in there and took it. It's like games that you play, and then it kind of tells you the type of person that you are. It might be it would be fun to do that with maybe some of your staff that you already have employed, just to see what kind of people they are, how they communicate, how they act in certain situations. But you have to, again, be careful with testing and personality testing pre-employment, okay? It's better to do, I think, some of this stuff after the fact. But lots of larger companies do pre-employment testing. They have you ask a lot, they ask you a lot of questions. Robin's shaking her head. She was in the pharmaceutical industry, and they give you all kinds of tests. I know that there was a car dealership, and they give the Warlick. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but they use that also in the NFL, and it kind of tells them how they're going to behave, I guess. But I think there's some sales implications and things like that that it will tell you. So think about those things. Remember that we are a resource to you for career services. We can post your jobs free. So if you're a small business and you want to advertise a job, you can do that free. We can help you with job descriptions. We help you connect to students and faculty, internships. Also, we have many, I'm just learning this after 7 years, that we have many other entities that can help consult with businesses. So, you know, if you need some other types of things, there are also individual faculty who will come in and on a consulting basis and will do studies and things and research for you. Sometimes they may even do a class. We have service learning classes. They will come out and do a project for you. So just keep all of those things in mind as a small business. They may be of value to you and may not cost you as much as it would if you went out into other consulting areas.